All right. So I've got Scott here from Dialed Archery. And Dialed Archery is a company that you might have, heard on Instagram, especially if you guys out there are bow hunters. They're just starting up and they've got a big following. And I'm just super excited for the site. I don't have one yet because they're still working on it. We were actually talking about that before the podcast here. And we basically recorded a podcast before the podcast. We've been talking for about 20 minutes, but I'm really excited for the product. I'm excited to know a little bit behind the scenes what's going on. And then, of course, when I get mine, I'm going to be doing a review for you guys because it's going to be my go-to this year. So, Scott, introduce yourself a little bit. What is Dialed Archery and whatever you want to share, kind of Scott in a nutshell to the listeners.
Sure. So yeah, I'm Scott Bakken. I'm one of the owners of Dialed Archery. Um, so Dialed, we officially launched last November, so November of 22. But the idea has we we basically kind of came up with the idea almost a year ago. So my two business partners, Taylor Coleman, Jordan Riley, we had worked together in my previous job position and just kind of built like our relationship out from there. And all of a sudden, it just kind of, things progressed. We got to know each other, and they kind of had some things going on like in their personal life that, they were ready for a change, new challenge. I was in the same boat. It was just kind of feeling like, even though I wasn't in a dead end job, I just kind of felt like, there was nothing more. Like I was just kind of stuck, right? And I've always been a person where like I don't like complacency or mediocrity. Like every day I want to be 1% better and growing. And if you're not growing, you're dying. And so actually Brandon Waddell, who we both know, I was talking to him, and I was just kind of having just a crappy day. And he's like, well, only you can change how you feel. And I'm like, I know, like, but I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know how to do that. And he's like, well, what is it you want to do? And I was like, man, I would love to, have my own company. And like, I had all these ideas of stuff that I wanted to try, but, I was kind of always told that, no, that won't work, or no, you can't do that. And I don't like being told no. Like if you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to prove you wrong, or I'll get hurt trying, but so I was talking to him and I was like, yeah, man, but starting your own thing, like you got to be smart to do that. Like, like I know I'm not a total dumbass, but I also know I'm no genius, like, and it's just, that's a very scary like thought, just leaving this comfortable life and like this, by most people's standards, like this really good life, right? But at the time, well, even still, like, I had nobody to take care of. Like, I'm not married. I didn't have kids. So it's like, I don't have anybody depending on me or my job. So it's like, if I was going to take a risk, now would be the perfect timing to do it. And, talking to Brandon, I had all these like, what ifs, well, what if it doesn't work? What if this? What if this? He's like, well, what if you don't do it? And it literally hit me. I was like, shit, like I never thought about that. And I'm like, I'd probably regret it. And he's like, well, there's your answer. So started talking to, Taylor and Jordan, and I pitched them this idea, and I was like, hey, like we should start an archery company. And at first, there was kind of like, oh, okay. And I was like, no, seriously, like we should do it. And they're like, well, we're up for a new challenge. And then it just kind of, snowballed from there. Started building our team out, which now includes the three of us plus two engineers. And then it kind of just took off like wildfire from there. And again, when we formed Dialed, we really didn't know what we wanted to do. We knew we wanted to innovate. We just wanted to build kick-ass archery products. Archery is all of our passion. Like archery is all I've done. My whole career has involved archery ever since I was 13. So it's like all I know. But again, we didn't know what that looked like okay, so what's our first product going to be? Like, what's our business model going to be? Like all these questions. And so we just kind of started going down all these rabbit holes, and ultimately, we just kept talking about how, what if we came out with a new archery site? Like nobody's innovating in that category. All the sites kind of look the same, everybody's kind of just doing the same thing over and over again. And once we lit that fuse, I mean, it was a flash. I mean, the ideas just started, coming, and our engineers were like, well, we could do this, 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 and this. And, but it was kind of like the perfect category because of my background plus everybody else's background. We had all this experience that we could put into one product. And, again, once we started on it, it was like everything, all the pieces just started, kind of falling into place. And then next thing you know, November 16th, we're launching Dialed Archery with the Arxos bow sight. And it's, like I said, it's amazing to think that, I mean, already it's almost mid-June, and it's like that time, it's just like, I mean, time just, flash forward. It's like, and now, I mean, we're growing faster than we ever would have expected, and quite frankly, faster than I would have wanted to. Because we said in the beginning, like, we got to walk before we run. Well, that went out the window within the first 30 days. So yeah, that's kind of how we got to where we are today. And as you mentioned kind of in the intro, like, we were right on the edge of being able to start shipping. So we've been taking pre-orders since November, but we actually ended the pre-order period last week just because we had to put a lid on it. It was getting out of control. And, we already had all these promises to people that, supported us in the beginning. And it's like, why dig that hole any deeper when we're already losing sight of daylight because we're getting so deep. And it's awesome. I mean, that's, it's better than having to chase sales. But now it's like, you feel the pressure. It's like, okay, now it's time to execute, which we will. I mean, we absolutely will. But it's just, like I said, we're right on the edge of being able to ship here in a couple weeks. So, but yeah, it's been awesome. And it's one thing I guess I never realized is just how hungry people were for something new. And, you look at all the bow sites out there, and it's, we heard multiple times like, oh, I like that, I shoot this site, but I don't really like it. It's like, well, then why do you shoot it? And it's like, well, that's their best option. Right. So, now there is another option. And like I said, things have just kind of taken off.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm super excited for it. I like a lot of the features that you guys have brought into it. I mean, there's a couple of features that really stand out to me, especially with a short draw. I love the angled slider where it gets closer to the actual peep sight, so that'll allow me to extend out a little bit further, which I do okay for for tack, right? I'm not going to be hunting out to 120 yards, but being able to go out that far for tack is a lot of fun. And having the bubble on the top, again, that allows me personally to extend out further because the sight post can go down further. But there's a couple other things too that I really enjoy about the product itself. But your guys' story, if I'm not mistaken, I think on the website it says that you guys started like brainstorming or the actual company on my birthday last year, 2021, really? Or maybe it was 2020. Was it 2 years ago you guys started talking about it, or was it last year?
Just last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think
I mean, end of 2021 was when, like, I guess we started like just joking about it, but there was no sincerity to it. But yeah, it wasn't until like May, June of last year that we really were like, all right, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we're coming up on a year basically.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a cool story. We were talking about behind, before we started recording here, just some of the issues that you guys have come up with, and you've been riding pretty smooth as far as supply chain until it wasn't, right? Until there was this one piece.
Enter brick wall called reality.
Exactly.
And
right. You're like,
go ahead. We hit that wall coming in hot, no brakes. I
Yep,
mean, yeah,
exactly.
that it was like a airbag test dummy.
So, and we'll talk a little bit more about 75 hard as well, but
Oh yeah.
do you feel like being dialed in allowed you to what dialed, I use that word a lot and it's
Yeah,
going to sound so
you can't use
cliche.
dialed in. You can't use dialed in. Yeah, dialed archery. Yeah, don't. You're gonna put me in a lawsuit using dialed in.
Well, okay. Well, I say dialed a lot anyway, so it's going to sound
Yeah,
really cliche that I'm, and
yeah,
kind of funny that I'm talking to you right now. But being so dialed on what you were doing to begin with, you came up a week out of your Shields camp, which I don't know much
hmm
about that camp. Sounds awesome. Sounds like you did
yeah,
a lot of hands-on stuff with your sites, but you were missing. There was one part that was promised to you and didn't end up coming through, and they told you a week before this camp. So just kind
yeah,
of walk us through your mindset, because there's some entrepreneurs that listen to this as well. Just kind of how did you deal with that situation, maybe on a broad spectrum, however in depth you want to go, but just the
sure.
idea of you're a week out of a big camp and you don't have the one piece that you need. How did
Yeah.
you get through that?
Well, yeah. So basically, yeah, the scenario was, we had this deadline, and uh, we so this university I attended, it's for Shields. They ship in employees from every store for a week of training, and we had, being a new vendor for them, we said, we wanted to donate a bunch of sites for the attendees to use so they get hands-on experience. And it's a huge opportunity. Like, that opportunity, it does not just get presented to anybody. So for us being new, it was huge. So, we have this huge, pedestal that we're trying to reach. And um, throughout our whole process of Dialed, we actually, like, we joked about it so many times. We're like, God, this is easy. Like, I mean, we were just like sitting there skipping along, and like and then as we got deeper, you start running into certain issues. But for real, like, I mean, we really did not have many challenges, um, and then, like we were talking, with all these other people that, are complaining about supply chain issues and this and that. We're like, we're not seeing it. We could get metal, I mean, we were getting all of our materials. And then, yeah, so the one machine shop, so we utilize two machine shops, and they specialize in different processes. And the one was like, yeah, we can have these parts to you by this date. We're like, all right, perfect, that'll give us, about a week, to get the parts here, get them to our Cerakote shop, and then get the parts back, and then I'll assemble them. And we know that we're flirting, like, that's a very tight schedule, but we're like, we can do it. And then I think it was like June 1st or whatever, but yeah, a week before I have to be on the road heading to this university, they call us and they're like, yeah, we don't have the tools that we need in order to make that part. And we ordered, like, those tools were ordered like 4 months ago. And so we're like, what the hell? And, we're like, is there any way? And he's like, no. He's like, I'm in communication with them, and it's not their fault, right? They're just the middleman. They're getting told one thing, they're passing it on to us. So it's like, but yeah, there was no way those parts were going to be there in time to make the part that we needed. So we went into panic mode. I started freaking out. I was like, if I have to make a phone call saying that we're not going to be able to deliver on these promises we made, I am going to look very, very stupid. And I don't know if I will be able to deal with that. Like, I don't like disappointing people. And especially on that level, when we've been given such a huge opportunity. And, we always say, like, control the controllables. If you can't control it, don't worry about it, which this was something we couldn't control. But at the same time, I refused. Like, I'm like, no, like, this isn't how this is supposed to end. So came together. We're like, all right, like, everybody let's just chill. We technically have, and this was Memorial Day weekend, right before Memorial Day weekend. And I'm like, we have, I think we had Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Tuesday to make this happen. So my two, Taylor and Jordan, my two partners, they were out of state doing a project for their other business, Capture Creative. And I was like, all right, you guys focus on that. I'm going to work with our two engineers. We'll get this figured out. So we just started checking around. I think I contacted like almost a dozen machine shops and just asked, could you guys, do you guys do expedited work? Some did, some didn't even respond to me. And I found two actually pretty close by. They were in the Twin Cities. And yeah, long story short, we got connected with one of them. They specialize in expediting, work for CNC. And so I sent our order in Thursday, and we had the parts on Tuesday or Wednesday. So yeah,
Wow.
yep. So I was out of town. I was in PA for the TAC, and the whole time I'm sitting here. So excuse me, it was 2 weeks before the university. So now going into a week before the university, the parts show up. I'm like, but I mean, so it's a different process, because normally when our normal machine shop makes parts, we get to inspect them, make sure everything's cool. We paid for these parts sight unseen. So they're going to show up and we have no clue what they even look like. So and it was a very expensive, move, but we had to do it. And by some stroke of luck, these parts showed up and were perfect. And we got into the Cerakote shop. So then, like we talked about earlier, so I'm in Pennsylvania. I get home from Pennsylvania. I leave from Pennsylvania last Sunday. I get home Monday at 3:00. And then basically from 4 p.m. on Monday until 5 a.m. on Tuesday, we built sites. And then I left to go to Shields University. So we pulled it off. I have no clue how we did it. But I guess, so long story short, going back to your question, I think it's just one of those things where, we're all very similar in the aspect that we're very competitive. But like I said earlier, I don't like being told no or being told I can't do something. And we're all kind of the type that, if you put us in a corner, we're going to fight our way out of it. And we just didn't give up. You got to figure out a way. Where there's a will, there's a way, right? It would have been much easier just being like, well, shoot, this isn't going to work out. I'll call Shields, tell them that we're not going to, make it to the university with the sites. And then, that's that. But anything, the easy route's never the best route. So, yeah, we just fought our way through it. And I mean, we got lucky. I mean, there was a lot of luck. But yeah, we just kept pushing forward. And even, like I was telling you earlier, Monday, as much as that sucked, pulling an all-nighter when I was going on no sleep already from the week before. I mean, it sucked, but at the same time, there was also, I mean, looking back, there's some enjoyment in it now, and be like, I can't believe we actually did that. And, like I said earlier, we live to die another day. So,
Yeah, exactly.
I know there's going to be plenty of other nights like that in the future. Once you do it once, it just, it gets easier. So,
It's possible. Yeah.
yeah, I know we can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I agree that there's some luck involved, but there's this saying, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's luck is where skill and determination or preparation meet, or something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
you obviously had some connections in the industry. You knew about machining. You had some engineers helping you out, and you weren't prepared to fail, right? You didn't want to deal with that, because yeah, you could have recovered from that. And a lot of people, I didn't even know that this was a thing, the Shields University. So I would have never known that you guys didn't show up, right? And I bet there's a lot of people on social media that would not have known that. But that's a big company.
Mhm.
Shields is a big company that honestly, I didn't know about until I came out west, and I still
Yeah.
don't go to Shields very much, but when I do, it's pretty cool. I like it. And
Yeah.
so I can see the appeal of it. Um, and there's definitely a good market there for you guys. So maybe not necessarily make or break, but this definitely helped make a lot of ground up, by you guys
Yeah.
being there. So I think that's awesome. That's a cool story. It just adds to your guys' story.
Yeah.
You guys have been through a lot. You guys, we were talking about, you had a 9 to 5 before this.
Hmm.
And like you said, Brandon, and he mentioned that to me too when I talked to him at Mountain Archery Fest. That he was like, I'm kind of the one that gave him the boot over the edge,
Hmm. He did. Yeah,
and
he did.
it is a cool question to ask, like, well, what would happen if you didn't do it,
Right.
and
Well,
most of the time.
and that's a question that I think most people would never ask themselves. And it's a question that I've never been asked, like my entire life. Like I said, I grew up in this industry, but I've never had anybody present to me like I've never had anything presented to me like that. Like, it kind of my whole life, it was always like, oh no, you can't do that. Like, you're not smart enough, you're not big enough, you're not strong enough, whatever. But then to have somebody be like, well, what if you don't do it? And be like, huh, never thought of it that way. But then I was like, I mean, deep down inside me, I was like, if I don't try this, I'll be worse off than I already was, because mentally I was already pretty beat up, like I was kind of in this really dark spot and I couldn't see a way out. And I'm like, moving forward without trying this would have just, sent me even deeper. And, but it's scary. I mean, it is very, very scary. Um, but at the same time, I was like, I just don't really see any other option. And this is what I really want to do. And like I said, I have to at least try. If it doesn't work out, at least I can say I tried. And, I'm young enough, like I'll figure something out, right? Like I'll go be a greeter at Walmart or whatever, like I can still bounce back. But, and that's been probably one of the best things about Dialed is just the support that we have received from everybody. I mean, people in our own inner circles, which like my inner circle is very small. But then just people,
You don't have a lot of time to go out and be social and have a
I'm
great.
not a very, people would never believe this, but like, I'm not a very social person. Like I generally just don't like people. Um, I've always kind of been like a Lone Ranger type of person, but now I do enjoy like going to the events and meeting people and just, talk hunting, talk gear.
Mhm.
I do enjoy that. So, and especially, now having Dialed, it just makes all that much more rewarding. And as I've gotten older, I've learned a lot just about, I like teaching people new stuff, right? And with the Arxos, there is a lot of new technology in that site and a lot of new features. But so I enjoy like bringing that and teaching people like this site really was built for you and to benefit you. But yeah, like I said, the support thing, it's just, I mean, that's been probably one of the best things. And just as, like the PA TAC, that was our first like experience in the real world. Like that was the first chance people got to see us and be like, hey, they actually do exist. Like,
Mhm.
we don't just live on social media. We don't just live on YouTube and,
Mhm.
and the internet. Like we actually are real. And then just to see everybody's like excitement and again, just everybody's support. Like we had multiple people, shake our hands and be like, super excited for you guys. Congratulations. Thank you for, coming out with something new. And so that's like, I was texting Taylor and Jordan all week and I was like, guys, like, I don't think you realize like what we've done. And it's great, but then deep down, I'm like, oh shit, like, we gotta
What have we done?
deliver. Yeah, we gotta deliver. Like, how the hell are we gonna do this?
Yeah.
But and again, going back to like our team, that was one thing I realized from day one is like I don't know what the term is for it, but like it's like this was like meant to be. Like like all these, like we all met each other for a reason, and we didn't know what that reason was, but it took this time for that to happen. And like I did not know our two engineers prior to Dialed, but then now, I mean, like they're part of my inner circle now, right? It's just these guys came together, and it's like our team is just like it's one of the best, it's probably the best team I've ever been a part of. And we're very similar in ways, we're very different in ways. We all complement each other, but the one thing that we all agree on and see in the same way is like we're all like team oriented. Like it's not about me, it's not about Taylor, it's about the whole team. And that includes like our customers or you, like anybody that wants to support us. Like we do not take that lightly. Like you are part of Team Dialed, and you are part of that inner circle now. So that's been probably for me like one of the most rewarding things, is just having this team that, yeah, we have our differences, we have our arguments, but at the end of the day, you know, I would do anything for any one of those guys, and you know, vice versa. Like TJ, our engineer, he found out about our all-nighter. Of course, we were texting him. He's on the East Coast, and he found out that I was driving on literally like no sleep for 30 something hours. And he called and was like on the phone with me the whole time. And he's busier than crap with his own business, but he stayed on the phone just to try to keep me awake. And I'm like, I don't know many people that would do that. So it's, you know, Dialed's more than, in my head, you know, Dialed's more than just a really cool, innovative product. It's like a community, right? It's the Dialed team, but then that includes, you know, everybody else too. And that's, I hope, you know, like people kind of get that feeling from, you know, our social media, you know, reaching out to us. You know, we couldn't do any of this without the support and encouragement from, you know, not only just like people in our inner circle, but also our customers too. So
Yeah, no, definitely. It's, you know, and it's, I think it's really refreshing because it's like, I mean, you can compare any industry out there. There's normally 2 or 3 big names, you know, I believe you used to work for HHA, right?
I did.
And so, you know, that's a bigger name out there. There's a couple other big names in the side industry, but you're right. They all kind of do similar things. And
Right.
so they don't necessarily, it's almost as if they're a little too big to receive good quality feedback to make any major changes. They make little tweaks here and there. But the fact that you guys, for example, just one prime example is from some of the testers. And I know Dan really likes your site as well from Elk
Mm-hmm.
Shape. And but he brought up, you know, that you can't lock in
The
the windage.
the
And
micro
so,
windage, yeah.
yeah, and there was a couple of other people I know, you know, and this different types of hunting with deer stand or with tree stand versus out west. I know my gear gets pretty beat up. And so
Yeah.
the likelihood of that getting bumped is very slim. But even if there's a chance, like that's the way Dan thinks. And he's kind of got me down that mindset and rabbit hole because
Yep.
I'm the same way with all the stupid scrub oak and crap we got to deal with out here.
Sure.
And so, you know, one branch just goes through the site and grabs it while you're walking, and that thing's getting, you know, twisted. Right.
Yeah.
And so the fact that you guys turned around after that feedback and immediately made a locking adjustment, like
It was like the next day,
yeah,
or like 2 days later. Yeah.
exactly. And I think that's what a lot of people key in on, is that you guys are open to that feedback. And
100%.
I know that you guys have a bunch of other options that you're coming out with. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure you guys are getting bombarded with, you know, like 3-pin, 5-pin, et cetera, all this other stuff. But you're like, hold on, let's just get the first one out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And that's, you know, and this whole process has been just like a huge learning experience. And like, you know, I can admit, like, you know, when I worked for HHA, you know, probably one of the most like, you know, iconic names in the industry. You know, they've been around for 30 plus years. They always have made, you know, a hell of good products. But you're right, like as a company gets to a certain size, they get complacent, right? And I understand more now than I did then that it takes a lot of resources to innovate, right? And I mean, you see it not just with them, but a lot of other, not even just site companies, just in general, right? That companies get to a certain size and they're kind of like at that threshold, like, okay, we're doing really, really well, right? We're profitable, we've gained market share, the the water's fine here, but we know we could get to this level. But in order to get to that level, we're going to have to invest X amount of dollars, X amount of time. We're going to have to hire, expand our team. So that's a lot, right? So I get the, like, hey, this is a good spot. Like, everybody's doing good, but that's just not me. You know what I mean? And that's not Taylor, that's not Jordan, that's not TJ, that's not Kyle, that's none of our team. So it gave us an opportunity, to, like I said, risk it all and innovate and try stuff new that these other companies aren't willing to do. And again, I understand, like I said, I understand more now than I did then.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get it. Like, I get it, but again, it kind of goes back to the saying, if you're not growing, you're dying. But that's, like you said, with like the feedback and stuff, like I always say negative feedback is better than no feedback. If people aren't giving you feedback, then you're not getting eyeballs on your product. And so, like Dan, I mean, he did a great review video, but that was one thing that, because we talked about, like, do we put a locking windage on there? And we're like, well, how do we do it? Because we had this look. We were very adamant about having this look, this style of the site. And we're like, well, how do you do that without ruining that? So we're like, well, let's just make the detent steeper on the windage, so it's harder, it's a deeper, stiffer click, kind of like on a rifle turret, and that'll work. And Dan right away called us out and was like, I don't like this. Well, then, freaking internet, people are like, hey, is it really true you don't have a locking, micro windage? And I'm like, and so right away, like, we all got on the phone and we're like, we have to do this. Like, we don't think that we need it, but that's not the perception of others. And if we run the risk of creating an issue when there doesn't need to be one, and yeah, I mean, it wasn't easy for us to pop that, hidden set screw in there, but it was one of those things. There's taking the feedback from Dan and some of his followers, it's like, we're better off to do this now than get a year down the road and be like, we fouled up on this, let's add it, let's just do it now and get it done with. Like, we're already this deep into it. What's another, that only delayed us, I mean, maybe 5 to 7 days. It cost a little bit more money, but we're like, at this point, what does it matter? So, but I mean, that's one thing we said from the beginning too, is, we don't want to be just another site company, and the site is just the beginning, but like I said before, the people that support us and the people that provide us constructive criticism, like, if you're just going to come at us and tell us that our product sucks just to be an asshole and you know nothing about it, we're not going to listen to you. Like,
yeah.
But if you generally, if you generally want to provide constructive, criticism in order to help, we'll listen to every single comment, and we'll respond to it, and we'll thank you, be like, hey, appreciate the feedback, and we know our site isn't going to be for everybody, right? That wasn't the point. It was for guys like you, like Dan, like Brandon, like us, that like just good, high quality kind of like cool stuff. Like, we're all gear nuts, so yeah, I mean, like, even going forward, we'll always pay attention to that.
No, definitely. And again, I think that's a big thing. I love it when companies include you in the process, and the fact that you guys,
it's amazing how many companies don't. Like, they pay thousands of dollars to have these influencers and stuff, but then they don't listen to anything they say.
Yep.
And it's, I bet, like, I would bet that, well, I know there's more companies that do that rather than the latter, and like listen to those people. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep.
Like it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And those are the same companies that will tell the influencer what they need to say, what's allowed to
Right.
be said on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, and it's sad, but you've explained it. And if you look at it from a business point of view, it makes more sense to kind of play the safe route, right?
100%.
And with you guys already, I mean, you literally, like you were saying before we got on, you sold your house, you sold everything. You have literally put your life into this company.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say that's kind of a risk, maybe
That's a huge risk.
just a little bit. And
Yeah.
so, like, what's a little bit more to, like, if that makes sense, you're already down the
Yeah.
risky road and
Yeah.
you're creating this company. So you're willing to take that risk because you're already down that road. Whereas a lot of other companies aren't, because like what you were saying, they're just comfortable. They're like, we
Yeah.
make good product. We've been here for years, for decades. We don't need to change much. We're good.
Well, and like I said, I mean, having gone through everything that we have, I understand that position. Like I said, a year ago, I didn't, I couldn't really see like why that's stupid. Like that doesn't make any sense. But now, again, going through everything that we've been through, and I mean, like I said, like making the decision to basically cash in my whole life. I mean, it's scary. So I get that, right? I totally get that. And nothing against like those companies. I mean, you do what you want to do, you do what's
Right.
best for you, but that's just not us,
Exactly.
like, like I said, putting every dollar into Dialed, but it's been worth it ever since day one. I mean, like I said, just for the team aspect, and that's, we always said like Dialed comes first, so doing everything that we have to make sure that Dialed is at the top of the priority list, and we're doing whatever we have to do to make sure that it's on, it's getting on the right foot and moving forward. And like I said, we've been growing, I mean, faster than any of us would have expected.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Apparently there's a lot of people out there that are just as crazy as us. So
yeah. Well, I'd say, you've got Kyle as your engineer, or one of the engineers, and he's a little innovative.
the
Just a little
shaft
bit.
master.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, you can't really see very well, but back there on my bow, I've got his new veins, which have also,
Oh, you have the sabers?
broke the market.
Yeah.
And so, it's cool to know that there's a lot of people that are smarter than me behind these projects.
Every single one of those guys is smarter than me. So trust me, I bring the intellectual level down several notches. But so, yeah, but I every day we say like, thank God we have Kyle and TJ on our team. Like, I would hate to be a company like going up against those two guys. Like, without those two guys, like Dialed wouldn't be anything. I mean, they've made it all happen, like, and they both, like, and I'm probably wrong on this, but I believe, like Kyle's more of a mechanical engineer, where TJ's more of a creative engineer.
Mm-hmm.
But when those two, like, we'll be on a conference call, and when those two like go down their engineering like racetrack, I literally, like, I just shut the camera off and like, I'm like, I'll just let these, I have no clue what they're talking about. Just tell me how much it's going to cost us, and when we need to have these parts here or whatever. But yeah, I mean, and like I said, I sound like a broken record, but that's honestly been the best part about Dialed. It's just building this team, and like I said, I've never been part of a team like this, and I'm very fortunate to have like all these guys, with Dialed.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here. Do you have one of the sites with you?
No.
Okay. You're like, I see enough of them every day.
No, honestly, I probably shouldn't say this, but I don't know. I was thinking about this on my drive home today, because we literally had to dedicate every site that we had or could build to the Shields University. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking on my way home, I'm like, I think we gave away all of our sites. Like, I don't know if we have one. Like, I was like, I think we just gave every single one away. I mean, we have parts to build more, but
Mm,
you know,
yeah,
we're
yeah.
waiting on some more parts. But yeah, no, um, no, I don't have one.
No, you're good. I mean, there's plenty of reviews out there, so people can go out and I mean, this will come out a little bit later, and maybe I'll pair it up with my review whenever I get it. But it's you know, you guys had a big pre-order. You had the Shields University. You're going out to TAC events. You guys are doing a lot of stuff. I'm super excited for it. I really love the story behind the company as well, the innovation, everything that's going on there. But what are some of, I mean, the people can go out and watch these videos as well. But
Mhm.
what are some of your favorite features on this site? You being an archer since 13, I'm fairly new, about 2.5 years in, but
Cool.
I'm already seeing things that I really like about it. But what are maybe your top 2 or 3 favorite features about this site?
All of them. I mean, honestly, I mean, I say all of them because they're all different. Um, but after, you know, being on the road for a couple weeks, I mean, talking to thousands of people over the last 2 weeks, I think probably like my favorite feature is, I think I would say it's what we call our top level technology. So it's where we moved our level from the bottom of the housing to the top. And the reason for that is now the levels in your peripheral vision. So you don't have to take your eye off the target to look down at your scope housing to look at the level. Um, that's probably the one feature that we've been getting the most um, feedback on, as far as people be like, I really like that. It's different. Like the first time I shot with that, I was like, where'd my level go? But after, you know, a handful of shots, you get really used to it. And, you know, the thing with like the Arxos is all of our features benefit the shooter. So like our slogan is built on purpose. And every feature that went into that site was built for a reason. That reason was to benefit the shooter and make them a better shooter. So that's why I say like I love all of our features. You know, as far as probably the most beneficial features outside of like the top level technology, you know, the angled elevation rail, you know, which helps people extend their yardage, their maximum yardage. You know, after attending, you know, TACs and Mountain Archery Fest and just all these different shoots and watching people shoot, um, you would see guys, women, um, all different types of shooters that were just great shots, but they were handicapped by their setups. You know, they weren't able to get the ranges that they should be. And that's just, it is what it is, right? Like, you know, me, I'm an average draw length. I'm a 28-inch draw length. I shoot 70 pounds, but I shoot really, really heavy arrows. I always have. Um, and you know, my max yardage is like 75 yards. Granted, you know, hunting scenarios, that's more than enough, but with as much fun as the mountain, you know, archery fests are and the tax and stuff, that's not even scratching the surface,
Yeah, it's
right?
like the average
um
shot on some of those courses.
exactly. And you know, you want to shoot with the cool kids and, you know, like launch a long bomb. So that's, and that kind of goes back to the feedback thing, like hearing all these feedback for years. That's how we built the Arxos, is like, yeah, again, kind of reaching back into the file cabinet of like, you know, people's perceptions of stuff and like getting all this feedback and being like, okay, so like in that scenario, in order to extend your range, your only option is to increase your speed, right? Which means you have to increase your poundage, increase your draw length, decrease the weight of your arrow, change your peep height, your anchor point, all this stuff that basically involves you changing your whole setup that you've known for however long,
Yep.
unless you change the angle of the elevation rail. And again, that was a TJ and Kyle thing. But so I think like again, as far as like the most beneficial feature, that's probably the most noticeable. Um, and then like I said, the top level technology. I mean, the whole customization part, like, you know, so we Cerakote everything. So we can use multiple colors, really customize those colors. So like now you can get the Arxos in 4 different frame colors, 13 different dial colors. So just being able to build it the way you want, rather than kind of being stuck in this box and being like, oh, I got to shoot a black sight, even though, I have a granite bow. Well, now you can take your granite bow, put our smoke frame on it, and it literally looks like it was all one piece. So, that's definitely got that cool factor to it. So, I mean, like I said, they're all cool features, but I'd say, like I said, my number one would be that top level, just because that's such a game changer.
No, definitely. Yeah, I love that idea. And I hadn't really thought about it. And, I spoke with some people at my archery shop, and they were saying that, I was bringing up your site, and, I told them whenever I get mine, I'd bring it in and let them see it. And obviously they're going to be putting it in for me. So I'm going to let them play around with it for a little bit. But, I got the black with the orange dial. And I'm really excited about that. I like the orange accents for some reason. I don't know. That's just a me thing.
Orange is my favorite color.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm with you.
So, it's got the top dial, or the top bubble. And then AJ from Knights of the Apex was mentioning that actually allows light into the bubble as well, which is something that there's some little slit.
That's because that was his idea.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Well, of course he's going to point that one out.
Yeah.
But again, just little details like that people didn't think about. I know Braxton was saying that he thought it was like allowing you to like get the bubble perfectly centered, because that line there, and AJ kind of called him out on it. But I think that's pretty cool. The way that you guys can slide the cover back and forth on the fiber optic.
The optic slide.
Yep. I think that's pretty awesome. And then of course, so when I do want to ask, and I like asking people this when they bring up heavy or light arrows, what is a heavy arrow for you?
Anything in like the high fives into like 6, that's what I consider heavy.
Gotcha.
I think my arrows are like 625. It's probably a little excessively heavy, but that's just, they shoot phenomenally well when they're that heavy.
Yeah.
And I'm not a long range shooter, so I don't really care that my arrow takes 3 times as long to get there. But once it gets there, it hits like a freight train. But I think most people's like, they consider heavy like anything like into the 5s or high 4s. But for me, that's not that heavy an arrow. I don't think so.
Yeah. I just so I'm 27.5 inch on a Matthews, because they run it. I'm stuck in this, like I would be like 27.75 if we could get it there.
I'm the exact same.
Yeah, because like on
I'm like 28.25.
Yeah.
So but like sometimes I run a 28, sometimes I run a 28.5, and like sometimes I switch back and forth. Like I'm literally 28.25, but I shoot 28.
Yeah, we just shortened up my D loop a little bit because it was getting a little chewed up, and now I feel just a little bit crunched. I'm like, really, it made that much of a difference? So I might have to move up to 28. But either way, we're in that same draw range. And I agree, like to be able to get that range, I can get out to about, I want to say 115. With I'm shooting 495 grain arrows this year. Last year I was like 450, like almost on the dot. And so for me, like that's a heavy arrow. But then, I talked to a guy the other day that has a 34.5 inch draw length. Huge guy, right? Yeah, he's ex NFL player, like just dude's a tank. And yeah, he had to get a custom made bow for him because he's like Shaq with shoes.
Yeah, that's nuts.
But yeah, I think he's shooting like over 700 grains, but he's probably still flying out of that bow over 300 feet per second.
Probably, because he's probably shooting like 90 pounds too, because he got so much leverage. But
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I've wanted to mess with my arrow special, especially with having Kyle on our team now. I mean, he is the wizard when it comes to arrows.
Oh yeah.
And I'd like to kind of find that perfect like recipe for an arrow, but at the same time, like I've shot heavy arrows for so long, like I'm just used to it and I like it. But I also know like having an arrow up in the 600s is that's excessive, right? Like you do not need that much weight. But like I said, it's worked for me. But I said this year was going to be a year where I'm going to start messing with some different arrow setups and work with Kyle and kind of like figuring out that perfect like happy medium. I just haven't had time to do it yet. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
I wonder
like
why.
yeah, well, so at the Shields University on Thursday, we had a 3D shoot with all the associates, and then the vendors were captains. And I have not shot a bow since last August.
Oh man.
I fired a couple of arrows like here and there, but nothing like I probably haven't shot a dozen arrows over the last year. And like, we have all these bows sitting at our shop for testing and stuff, and I'm left-handed, and I have all these left-handed bows just sitting in boxes because I haven't had the time to set them up. So I roll up with, my 7-year-old Matthews that looks like it went through a meat grinder. I got a Gen 1 Arxos on there, and I have 2 arrows.
There you
Like
go.
I was that guy. Like I was the Caddyshack guy, showing up to this archery shoot. And yeah, it was funny. I
That's
didn't
awesome.
shoot I didn't shoot excessively well, but it was fun. But I do, coming up here, while we have a little bit of grace period here over this next week or two until we start getting some more parts in. I really want to like build out, like, like I said, that arrow recipe, work on getting a couple bows set up, and really start doing some shooting. So we'll
Yeah.
see if it happens or not. But
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah. So I mean, just kind of going into the arrow setups there. So I like to have, because my expensive arrows are what I'm going to use on my elk, and
mhm,
mule deer. For turkeys, I like to have maybe a little bit lighter arrow with mechanical
sure.
on it. And so that was the other feature that I wanted to bring up, was just that, you guys have the switch tapes,
Hmm.
which I haven't sorry, I haven't seen that on any other sites. Right.
Hmm.
And so that kind of blew me away. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So the switch tape, so it's a white ring that holds your yardage tape, and you have the ability to choose whether you want your yardage tape on the inside of the frame or the outside of the frame. If you're running, the V3X with the bridge lock, or a Hoyt with a Picatinny, which moves the sight from the outside, to the center of the riser, having that sight tape on the inside puts the tape in a much more, kind of convenient location to see it. But then the rings or the switch tapes are actually interchangeable. So they're removable. So, again, just talking like we have been, if you buy some just really cheap arrows for the tax, which I just like, honestly, when I get to tax, I go to the big bucket where they have all the lost and found arrows, and I just pull arrows out of those. Like I steal everybody else's arrows, but no, I generally like buy the crappiest, cheapest arrows I can. But then, that's going to be one setup tape or one yardage tape, because that's going to be a different speed. And then if I'm still rolling with my heavy arrows for hunting, that's going to be a different tape because of the speed. So with the rings, you can have multiple yardage rings set up, and then you just swap them out. So you're never having to resight in. So you could go from shooting, a 3D shoot on the weekend with your cheap lightweight arrows, and jump in the tree stand, or go, chase an elk on the mountain the next day with your heavy arrows, just by swapping the rings out. Um, so it just gives you more options.
Yeah, no, that's something that's what was interesting to me. I ordered a couple of the switch tapes too, because I wanted to have those arrows that, for turkey. I
Yeah.
generally, just to kind of put a little bit more pressure on myself, I shoot my arrows that I'm going to shoot for elk and deer at
Mm-hmm.
tack. That didn't go so well for me this last at Mountain Archery Fest. But it is what it is. I had to go dump some more money into some arrows, but I
I
like
like
the idea of oh, go ahead.
I like using the cheapest arrows, because then if I miss, I don't waste the time to go look for them.
Oh, that's true. That's
I'm
true as well.
especially at a target that's like 100 yards. It's like
Yeah,
I have to walk 100 yards there, look for my arrow, which is probably going to be splintered into a million pieces, and then walk 100 yards back. Like,
that's true.
nah, I'm good. Like
That's
Mountain
true.
can have that arrow. But I was going to tell you, probably the best arrow for turkey would be a 3-inch Federal or Winchester
Oh my
uh,
gosh.
shot shell with an 1.5 ounce number fours.
I was
That's what I would use.
I was down in Texas, and I was with some of the Cope Creative guys
Hmm.
down there, and they said the same thing. They were like, they use some colorful language that I won't share
Mm-hmm.
here on the podcast
Mm-hmm.
about people that hunt turkeys with bows. And I'm just sitting there kind of like twiddling my thumbs. I'm like, huh, this is cool to listen to. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, does that make me one of those kind of people? If I, and they were just like railing on me. Like they were bringing up scripture verses and like they were going
I
into it.
I like the idea of shooting turkeys with a bow, but ultimately, shooting turkeys in the face with a shotgun is just so much more satisfying.
Well, their face already looks all chewed up like a piece of gum anyway. Like,
Yeah. I feel like they're like a demon animal that's just put on this earth to like make you feel worse about yourself. And like I already struggle with that on the daily. So then I don't need this like dodo bird, you know, showing
they're
off in front of me and
yeah.
getting away with it. So
Well,
I
Braxton had
make
a cool experience. I don't know if you saw that video, but he
I
shot
did.
one. Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it comes right up to him 5 yards away from him.
Yeah.
But no, so like, I love the idea of not having to, as long as the arrow tunes, not
Hmm.
having to rip your tape off, put a new tape on, go to tack or go wherever you're going to shoot, test out some arrows. Like I love to tinker with arrows and mess around with different arrow weights,
Yeah.
different spines between 250 and 300, micro diameter, 5 millimeter. Like I like messing around with stuff like that. And so the idea of being able to take that switch tape off, put on another one and already know that that's dialed to that specific arrow.
Right.
I like that a lot. And it's really not, I think they're like $10 a piece or $15 a piece. They're
They're
not that expensive.
$10 for a one pack, and then we offer them in a 3-pack, I think for $25.
Yeah.
But you know that they also like for anybody, well, like for you, for example, or anybody that does like backcountry hunts or going on adventure hunts, like I always, if my sight tape is tape number 45, let's say,
Mhm.
I'll build out 2 more rings with sight tape number 45 and keep them in my pack. Because I mean, you never know, like, if you get stuck in like a torrential downpour, like even though our tapes are water resistant, it's still a
Mhm.
paper product. So, they could, peel off or whatever. I mean, there's preparations you can make to really, make
Yeah.
sure that they're waterproof. But I always carry extra rings just in case.
Yeah.
Because without a ring, you don't know. I mean, you're kind of SOL, right?
Yep.
Like you don't know what your yardages are. So yeah, there's lots of options with those rings. And especially like, like we were just talking, if you're wanting to mess around with different, arrow recipes, different draw weights, like arrow lengths, all that stuff, you can literally chart all that out with these different rings, and then everything's kept straight, right? So
Yep.
yeah, I mean, they're an inexpensive investment to just, really be able to play around with stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And then, not having to going back to the bubble being on the top of the site. So if, people out there can picture this, and you can again go look up a picture of the site online, but you'll see that, the bubble being on top allows the 2 pins because it's a single post, right? And so there's the top pin and then there's the bottom pin that you guys put in
Yep.
there as well, which is allowed to get further down towards the housing because the
Hmm.
bubble's not in the way. And
Exactly.
I personally, like, some people are like, well, just shoot off your bubble. I'm like, I don't like that. I personally don't like
That's
that.
that's great if you're aligning the bubble with like the top of the back of
Mhm.
something, because then you have a vertical line on a vertical line. But if you're actually trying to shoot like a specific distance or like aim at a specific spot, it's impossible to do it
Mhm.
with
Yep.
a level. But like I said, if you're doing like a line on a line, that works well. But yeah, so that was the other advantage of the top level, is giving us more retail space on that vertical post, and not only having a second yardage dot, but being able to drop it down to where now we give you a larger yardage variance, so you can cover, like, with everything we've seen so far, that second dot is about 50. So now you can cover 20 to 50 yards without ever having to touch your sight. um, but having that second dot, it's like having a little safety net. Like I would still run the site like if it was a
Yeah.
single pin where I can range dial. um but then just knowing you have that, and I've been a single pin shooter like most of my life, and like you'll never convince me to shoot multiple pins.
Yeah.
But I like having that second pin as, like I said, a little safety net just in case.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So
it's
I'm
it's
I'm
a
going from
pretty rad
three
system.
from 3 to 1. And there was a couple of sites that I was looking at that offer a second pin adjustable and things like that. But I was like, well, if I'm going to go single pin, I'm going to test out this dialed site, because there's so many other features to it that I want to go to. And, people that I trust say that single pin is the way to go. There's a lot of people that also say 3-pin, which it's worked for me. But I'm interested to see how this one goes. So,
and that's a conversation like I love, like talking to people about like 1-pin versus 3-pin, because there's advantages to both. And ultimately at the end of the day, it's whatever you're most comfortable with and what you're most confident with. But you cannot argue. Nobody can argue that you are more accurate with a single pin. Or I should say just a single post. Doesn't necessarily have to be one pin.
Oh yeah.
But a single post, like you are the most accurate with that. So, again, offering the 2-pin on a single post, it kind of like scratches that itch of the advantages of like a 3-pin, but still keeping that single post. So, I'm super excited to play around with it more and really get to learn, shooting the 2 different pins. Because before with a single pin, I always practiced my hold over and hold unders and stuff. So like I said, I'm anxious to mess around with it more. And I think, like in my mind, it's kind of like the best of both worlds, right? You get the accuracy of a single pin, but yet you still get the adjustability and the options of a multi-pin without cluttering your scope housing.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And there's the bubble being on the top again clears up space in the scope housing, because the animal is going to be about midway in your scope housing down, right? When you're looking at it, you're not going to be looking at the animal at the top of your scope housing. So having the bubble up there too, I can see that being an advantage, because again, it clears up, which is again why I wanted to go. One of the big things I wanted to go to the single post is because of that clarity. It reminds me of an AR, an AR sight.
Exactly.
When you have iron rings or iron sights. It's all, I mean, your eye it's just more appealing. I feel like to my eyes, I know some people may disagree, but for me, I prefer to have it coming up from the bottom than out from the side. So
100%.
Yeah, definitely. Cool, man. Well, I've kept you for over an hour because we talked, like I said, almost 30 minutes before we did this podcast.
Like I told you, I said, man, I'm a walking zombie at this point. So like if I just start rambling and talking gibberish, it's because I don't even know what I'm.
Yeah. How's the sunset over there? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
Your day just went by. Do you have anything else that you want to share that maybe I didn't touch on? I mean, there's you as a person is, I wanted to touch on a lot of things, but again, I don't want to keep you over this hour.
Yeah.
So,
no, we're good.
Yeah.
I mean, we touched on a lot of stuff. I guess just kind of reiterating on a couple things. I guess depending on when this podcast comes out at the time, as of today, we're still in pre-production of the sites, but anybody that buys a site or supports Dialed, just know again that like we appreciate more than you'll ever know. And we're going to continue to innovate. We're going to bust our asses just to keep things moving. And as we progress here over the next couple weeks, couple months, you're going to see a lot more content rolling out from us, mainly in the forms of like informative videos, instructional videos. We got some ideas for some funny, stupid ones that really just show that I've hit rock bottom and I have no pride left. But
what, like Valentine's Day? That wasn't.
Made my mama proud with that one. But yeah, stuff like that. So no, like I said, we're just getting started, but we got a lot in the works, a lot of stuff coming. So we got a lot of work to do, but awesome. It's it's one of those things where it just every day it just motivates you. And like I said, anybody that supports us, like you'll never know how much we appreciate it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Okay, well, cool. Honestly, I'm not sure when this one's going to release, but I'm assuming I'm going to put it out around the same time that you guys start shipping things.
Cool.
Just so we can line up there and you're not overwhelmed with more messages from people about the pre-order being over and how they want this and that. But guys, go check out Dialed Archery. Dialed is just an amazing company. Love supporting US made products, small companies that have great ideas like this. Definitely go check them out. I'll leave the links down below. And then of course, go check them out on Instagram and all the good social medias. And you should go. I think the video is still up. If you haven't seen the video of the Valentine's Day, you should definitely go watch that Valentine's Day video. It's hilarious. And it's going to make you want to buy a red sight. So, but it's been great talking with you, Scott. I really appreciate it. Go get some rest, man, as much as you can. And then before you get stressed out again here in about a week. So
appreciate it, man. Thank you.
All right.